Welcome to the Book of Life, a show about Jewish people and the books we read. I'm Heidi Estrin. The Book of Life is a podcast service of the Feldman Library at Congregation B'nai Israel in Boca Raton, Florida. Additional support comes from the Association of Jewish Libraries. In this February 2007 episode of our podcast, we celebrate the holiday of Purim. We'll learn about a classic Purim picture book, Queen Esther Saves Her People, by Rita Golden-Gelman, illustrated by Frene Lassak. For the first time on our show, we have some movie reviews for you on the Purim-related films One Night with the King and For Your Consideration. We'll meet the creators of Jewtopia, a hit play and now a hit book. And we'll hear the winning joke from our joke contest. By the way, the Book of Life now has its own Frapper map, a combination map and guest book. Put your pin on the map to show where you're listening from. You can even add a greeting, a comment, or a picture of yourself. You can reach the map through our webpage at jewishbooks.blogspot.com. In an appropriately topsy-turvy Purim way, Queen Esther Saves Her People is the only Jewish book ever worked on by author Rita Golden-Gelman or by illustrator Frene Lassak. Yet it is a classic Purim picture book and the winner of a Sidney Taylor Book Award Silver Medal. In another crazy twist, I expected Rita and Frene to be hard to reach, since Rita is a world traveler and Frene lives in Australia. But they both responded immediately to my email, and I spoke to them for free using Skype. Let's hear now from Rita Golden-Gelman, speaking from Pátzcuaro, Mexico, and Frene Lassak in Fremantle, Australia. Rita, Purim is much less popular with publishers than more widely known holidays like Hanukkah and Passover. How did you end up doing a Purim book?
My editor at Scholastic is both Protestant and Chinese, and she said, "How about Purim?" As a kid, it was my favorite holiday. The fun of it all was going into the sanctuary and being allowed to scream and holler and hiss and cheer. And there was something wonderfully sacrilegious and naughty. And I just thought, Purim is a great holiday.
Frene, what did you think when you were asked to illustrate Queen Esther Saves Her People?
Oh, I was just so delighted because as a child, I did Purim play every year at Hebrew school. And I always got killed off in the first scene. I always played Queen Vashti. So to be able to paint the book and paint it to the end and be involved with it, I thought fabulous.
Did you learn anything new about Purim as you worked on this book?
When I took on the assignment and went through the Book of Esther, I realized that there were vast holes in the story that I could play with because no one else knew either. I mean, it didn't say what it was like for Esther to be there, to be locked up in this harem area, all these strange young women who had nothing more in common but their beauty. And I fooled around with that a little in the book.
Queen Esther, of all books I've ever created, was one of the most fascinating because it takes place in ancient Persia. I was able to find a room in the British Museum in London that actually had pottery, statues, silverware. So that was a thrill to be able to see the artifacts to bring this book to life.
Rita, do the pictures look the way you saw the story in your imagination as you were writing it?
No, not at all. But they never do. I've written 70-plus kids' books, and as I'm writing, I have some kind of an idea of what it would look like, and it almost never is what I see, and it almost always is better.
Frene, can you give us any inside information on details to look for in the pictures? Are there special details of Persian dress we should look for, or any hidden meanings or visual jokes in the pictures?
There's a lot of visual jokes, a lot of humor. Like Haman always has his hat on, and in one scene he has his hat off. You finally see he's totally bald under it, and all with his shirt up, you see he's got a nice pot belly. And also his dogs. I gave him 2 Jack Russells, who are very mean-looking dogs in the book. They're all growly, and they have the spiked collars on, and they're not very happy. But in the end, when Haman gets hanged, you can actually see the dogs are very happy. Their horrible collars are off. They're smiling. So that's another little bit through the book of what the dogs are doing. Oh, yes, the scene where Haman's walking down through the town where everyone's bowing to him except Mordecai, and behind his back there's a couple of people sticking their tongues out at him. The other thing I want to mention is the women in the book. When the king was looking for a new wife, it says beautiful young women arrived at the palace from all over the empire. I thought, okay, how am I going to depict what is a beautiful woman? So in the illustration, my beautiful women are tall, short, fat, thin, every color possible of every race, because I thought, well, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What is a beautiful woman? So I like that bit, that everyone could see beauty in no matter how tall or short or fat or thin you might be and what color you might be.
Rita, you've written about this strong female character, and you've actually been living a very interesting life as well these days. In fact, your Skype name that I called you on for this interview is Female Nomad. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. In 1987, I was facing divorce, and I looked and I thought, well, what is it that I'm going to do with the rest of my life? And I decided I was going to just take off and have adventures for the rest of my life. I sold everything I owned, sold or gave away, and took off with a backpack, and I've been doing it ever since. So I really do call myself a nomad, and I've written one adult book called Tales of a Female Nomad, which is about 15 years of wandering the world. And I've been here in Mexico now for 3 months. I was in Indonesia for almost 8 years on the island of Bali, and Borneo and New Guinea. I spent a year in Nicaragua and a year in Guatemala and a year in India. And most recently I was in Tanzania. Interestingly, people read the Nomad book, they check out the library and discover there are kids' books, and then I get invitations. Everybody who reads the Nomad book knows I'm homeless. And I get all these great invitations. Absolutely fascinating existence, meeting interesting people, visiting interesting cultures. I'm having a lot of fun.
That's wonderful. Rita Golden-Gelman, Frene Lissac, thanks so much for speaking with us.
Oh, thank you so much, Heidi. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
One day, a blind man is walking down the street, tapping his cane, comes to the corner, and he can hear that the traffic is so great he's afraid to cross the street. Here's somebody approaching behind him, and he says, "Excuse me, mister, I'm blind a long time, all since I'm born. Usually like the big fellas, I go right across the street with a tippity-tippity-tap-tap-tap. But today I'm frightened. Is it possible, please, you would help me across the street?" The guy says, "Certainly, why not?" So he helps him across the street. They get to the other side, and the blind fella says, "You got maybe a few seconds I could ask you a couple questions or three?" He says, "Sure." He says, "Tell me, I'm blind since I'm born." He says, "They try to help me with my clothes. They put them on hangers so that everything should match. But, sometimes I knock something over, I pick it up, I put it the wrong place. Did I put myself together okay today?" The guy says, "Yeah, everything blends. You really look nice." He says, thank you. He says, "Tell me, I'm blind since I'm born. I a good-looking fella, a ugly fella, what I look like?" He says, "Well, Paul Newman, you're not, but I would say you're better looking than average." He says, "Thank you." He says, "One more question positively, then I let you go." He says, "Tell me, now you know me so well, what one thing you think I could do to really improve my image?" He says, "You could drop the Jewish accent. You're black."
That's good.
And they even came with a laugh track.
Yep. Thanks to Pete Pollack in Boca Raton for this joke, and to any black Jews who may be listening, please call us up and give us your jokes too.
Hooray for Hollywood, that's gooey valley, hooly Hollywood.
Catherine Bernheimer is a movie critic and the program director at the Boulder, Colorado JCC. She is also the author of The 50 Greatest Jewish Movies, a critic's ranking of the very best, published in 1998 by Birch Lane Press. Her #1 movie pick, by the way, is The Chosen. I spoke to Catherine by Skype so that she could review 2 recent Purim films for us. Catherine, this may be the first time in the history of Hollywood, or maybe the history of the world, that there have been not 1 but 2 Purim-related major motion pictures, One Night with the King and For Your Consideration. Would you give us your review of One Night with the King first?
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. This is an unprecedented event. And I thought it was quite amusing when I was looking over the reviews that both of these films got. One of them from the Los Angeles Times said, "Why another version of this oft-filmed tale?" Now, I don't know how many versions this reviewer, Sam Adams of the LA Times, thinks he's seen, but I sure haven't seen a whole lot of Purim stories. It's important to note that the Megillah is not actually the source material for One Night with the King. The source material is a historical novel, Hadassah, by Tommy Tenney and Mark Andrew Olson. But even so, I think the film sticks fairly closely to the original story. It was filmed on location in India. The costumes and the set design were very sumptuous and gorgeous. One Night with the King got really terrible reviews. People said things like, "Dear Lord, why must your most ardent followers unleash such bad movies in your name?" And one of the most interesting comments that I read was, "Don't Christians deserve quality? Of course, but they won't find it here." And what's interesting about that is that there is the assumption that this is for a Christian audience. Now, I think the Jewish audience feels pretty possessive of the Megillah, the Purim story, and the Book of Esther. But it's interesting that anything that is biblical is perceived immediately as Christian. But I think a lot of teachers in the Jewish educational institutions will find One Night with the King quite valuable because it does do a very good job on telling the story in a very entertaining, not fabulously creative, but it's a very solid interpretation of the story.
Okay. Ultimately, do you give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Well, it sort of depends. If I were going out to the movies, I probably would not be very impressed by it. If I'm sitting at home and I've got on DVDs, I find it very worthwhile, and particularly from an educational point of view. And in that context, it's fairly good.
Okay, that's interesting. Now would you tell us about For Your Consideration?
For Your Consideration was co-written by Christopher Guest and Eugene Levy. Christopher Guest is not Jewish, Eugene Levy is, and he inserted some very specific Jewish material into the film, particularly the premise, which is that there is a small budget film called Home for Purim, which is a very melodramatic story of a family in the South uniting around adversity for Purim. There's a lot of humor that gets milked from this. There's a wonderful scene, for example, when everyone's sitting around the dinner table dressed in full Purim costume, which never happened at my house. I don't know about your house, but and in the end, one of the big jokes in the film is that once the film gets Oscar buzz and people start talking about it and it becomes seriously considered, they right away realize that Purim is just not going to sell to the American public, and they better turn it into Home for Thanksgiving, which is what they do. It's a wonderful commentary on how Hollywood has tended to de-emphasize the Jewishness of stories with the idea that something Jewish would not be of interest or might be even off-putting, which I think is an insulting and erroneous assumption and has been proved wrong many times. But the filmmakers here are having a great deal of fun at the expense of Hollywood. Considering all the Jews that are in Hollywood, it's rather ironic that Jewishness is often seen to be the kiss of death. And I love the comment in the New York Post. Guest and his co-writer, Eugene Levy, aren't afraid to chew off the hand that feeds them. That's exactly what it does.
Okay, so thumbs up or thumbs down?
I would give it a thumbs up, but not a terribly enthusiastic thumbs up. I think for a Jewish audience, it has lots of inside jokes. Just as One Night with the King, I think they're both worthwhile, but I wouldn't say that either one of them are great movies. But they're two of the best Purim movies ever made.
What do you think caused the stars to align so that these Purim movies came into being in the same year?
Absolutely nothing. I think that it was complete coincidence. I think that with Christopher Guest, when they were coming up with a script, my guess is they were trying to find the most sort of obscure and humorous of the Jewish holidays. On the other hand, I think One Night with the King comes out of the recent trend towards taking religion seriously. The Bible is full of great stories, and I think we'll be seeing more movies like this because I think there's a perception that there is an audience for movies that deal with biblical subject matters. So I think they come from two totally different reasons, and it just is coincidence that they both focus on Purim.
Catherine Bernheimer, thanks so much for speaking with us.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for allowing me to speak, and hopefully next time we'll talk about Borat, one of the great Jewish movies playing today.
Okay, great.
Hi, I'm Nina Black. So Bubala is the baby of the family, and it's Bubala this, and Bubala have something to eat, and Bubala let's take a nap, and Bubala it's time for dinner, Bubala eats some more, Bubala, Bubala, Bubala. Finally, the day arrives. It's Bubala's first day of school. So he goes to school, they take him to school, they dress him up, they kiss him, be a good boy, Bubala, listen to your teacher, Bubala. He goes to school. They pick him up and the school is over. No, Bubala, what did you learn? And he says, I learned, my name is Oiving.
Mazel tov to Nina Black, winner of our joke contest, who will be getting a free copy of Jewtopia, the chosen book for the chosen people. In the spirit of Purim, we bring you a piece now on Jewish comedy. Brian Fogel and Sam Wolfson are the creators of the hit play Jewtopia and have written a spin-off book called Jewtopia, the chosen book for the chosen people. I met them at a Barnes & Noble book signing in Boca Raton, and you'll hear scribbling noises in the background as they autograph piles of books. Before we hear from Brian and Sam, we'll listen to a clip of the promo for their book that can be found on the Jewtopia website. After our chat with them, stay tuned to hear one of the routines they performed for the appreciative crowd at Barnes & Noble.
Does your mother call you a minimum of 18 times a day? Do you hire people to do the simplest of household improvements? Do you think that by touching any public surface, you'll contract Ebola, hepatitis, or even lethal avian bird flu? Do you feel out of place when you hang out with your Gentile friends?
Jesus died for all of us except for you.
Hello, Jews! I'm Brian Fogel.
And I'm Sam Wolfson, and we're the writers and stars of New York's biggest hit comedy, Jewtopia.
And if you're a Jew, have friends that are Jews, dating a Jew, married a Jew, or even dreamed about being a Jew, then our book, Jewtopia, the chosen book for the chosen people, is for you.
Jewtopia, the chosen book. Tell me more, Brian and Sam.
Brian, Sam, tell us about Jewtopia.
The play is something that we started back in 2003, and for the last year we've been working on this book, Jewtopia, the chosen book for the chosen people. We just set out to make the craziest Jewish humor book ever.
How did you come up with the idea for the play and then the book?
I tell you to write what you know, and that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, we just wrote our families and pressure to marry a Jewish girl and trying to stay sane with, crazy parents who love you but smother you, and just kind of wrote about that.
Jewtopia is full of Jewish stereotypes. How do you take stereotypes and turn them from offensive to funny?
We have a 2-page spread. It's a chart on how to tell how cheap of a Jew you are. We kind of feel like there's humor in anything, and really nothing is out of bounds and nothing's off limits, and we kind of embraced it instead of hiding from it and being embarrassed about it. We just kind of attacked it head on. And
I think that if you can't laugh at yourself, you really can't laugh at anything or anyone. And our history in humor is self-deprecating humor, from Jackie Mason to Larry David and Mel Brooks, everyone in between. I think everything that we're creating is kind of out of a love of who we are.
What do you think non-Jews will think of this book? Will they get the humor?
Our show, at the beginning, our audiences were mostly Jewish. It's really totally mixed now. It's about half and half. Our feeling is, you don't have to be Greek to like My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and you don't have to be black to like Richard Pryor, and you don't have to be Jewish to laugh at Jewish humor if it's coming from a real place, and anybody can kind of identify with it in their own life in one way or another.
Tell us about the upcoming Jewtopia movie.
We have written a screenplay called Chris O'Connell and Adam Lipschitz Lose Their Religion, loosely based on the play Jewtopia. We're totally thrilled. That's kind of the media form we wanted to be in all along. A play and a book were kind of a sidetrack to getting a movie. So we finally got it, though.
Brian and Sam, thanks so much for speaking with us.
Thank you for having us.
I'm going to read you a little phone conversation with our mothers here. Sam will be reading the role of my mother. I'll be reading myself.
So, did you take the zinc I sent you?
Yes, Mom.
Then why do you sound hoarse?
Because I'm performing our play 8 times a week and I'm working my ass off on this book.
You better turn this book in on time to Time Warner, because I don't want them to cancel my cable.
They're not going to cancel your cable, Mom.
Yes, they are, and then they're going to put me on the cable blacklist.
What blacklist?
If they find you to be a problem customer, you get put on their blacklist. Benny Greenstein mouthed off to the guy who installed his cable, and now all he gets is NBC Latino.
Mom, the book division has nothing to do with their cable division.
I will not be forced to watch Shakira videos all day because you turned your book in late. Ooh, Susie Morris is going to be calling you. Who? Our friends the Morrises. They have a daughter your age. She's going to be in New York for a week, and I told them she's welcome to stay at your house while she's there.
What? Mom, I can't let some strange girl stay at my house.
She's not strange. She's Jewish. She's beautiful. She has a great job.
Well, if she's so beautiful, then why is she single? And if she has such a great job, then why can't she afford a hotel?
I hear she's easy.
Bye, Mom.
Thanks to everyone who sent in jokes for our Purim joke contest. Here's one more for you, submitted by Maureen Reister in Texas. She says, according to the Jewish calendar, the year is 5767. According to the Chinese calendar, the year is 4704. That means for 1,063 years, the Jews went without Chinese food. These times were known as the Dark Ages. If you want to share a joke or any other thoughts, email bookoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Post a comment on our website. Or if your computer has a microphone, leave a 2-minute voice message by clicking on the My Chingo link on our website at jewishbooks.blogspot.com. You can also add your PIN to our map to show us where you're listening from. The Book of Life is supported in part by the Association of Jewish Libraries, tending the Tree of Knowledge, and promoting Jewish reading by supporting Judaic libraries and librarians. Visit them on the web at jewishlibraries.org. Our background music is provided by the Freilach Makers Klezmer String Band from Sacramento, California, whose CDs feature upbeat music from the Ashkenazic and Sephardic traditions with Brazilian, Gypsy, and Celtic influences. Borrow their CDs at the Feldman Library or buy your own copies at freilachmakers.com. To download episodes of the Book of Life podcast, visit us on the web at jewishbooks.blogspot.com. That's jewishbooks, one word, .blogspot.com. Links to the books and CDs mentioned on the show are available on this website. You can also hear the latest episode by phone. Just call 916-313-3820. Thanks for listening, and happy reading.